In this video, I will be fixing all the rust on this very rusted out 1964 Chevy K10 cab. In my last video on this truck, I vacuumed out all the dirt, rust, and acorns from this cab because it was disgusting. This wasn't even all of it. So obviously there's a lot that needs work on here, but I think we're going to start by taking this here rocker off. Rocker's off, and now you can really see how much more rust is underneath it. This is what's left of one of the cab mounts, which it's junk. Alright, just putting this new rocker on here makes this already look a lot better, but that's because it's hiding a lot of the bad stuff. This right here, I need to make, this needs to cut off here and extend it down because that's all rotted away. And same thing on the other side. This floor actually has a lip right here, which I couldn't tell because the rocker was covering it and because the rest of it's all gone. But the new pan has that, so that's a good thing. So I did a little research, and it turns out you can actually buy these things, which are called cab pillars. You can buy them for the back part too, which is also pretty nice. So what we're going to do first is replace these pillars because we need them to be straight in order for the rocker and the floor pan to go in straight also. So we cut the front pillar out, and that's all that's left of it. But we got the new one lined up and it's ready to be tacked in. Next we cut the back one out, and this one's pretty bad too. Then we tacked it in and lined up the inner rocker and the rocker to make sure it's straight. Next up was this part of the cab, which was pretty bad, but you can apparently buy it online, so we did. We cut out the old one and then we lined it up. But this piece of floor needs to be fixed. Alright, so the next thing on the list was this piece of the floor, which is also the inner rocker, but the cab has a small frame that runs underneath this piece, which of course was rusty, so the spot welds were drilled out and we bought a new one to replace it with. And then once the other one was out, we put in the new one and got that all tacked up. And then once that frame piece was in, this inner rocker and floor pan sat nicely on top of it. Next we needed to fix this section of the floor, so we made a piece and set it in place. Now this part of the cab, we do have this piece that we bought for it, but it doesn't quite get high enough and there still is a little bit of rot up here, so we're going to cut that out and replace it with a new piece. Okay, so we got that piece cut out, and before we make a new one to weld in, we welded this new pillar piece in from the inside and then we painted it to prevent further rust. Now we could weld in this last little piece and it fits pretty good. And then after that I welded up all these floor pans for good. Next up is the top part of the frame, which the new piece of frame doesn't come with, so we cut out the old part so that we can make up a new piece. So we made up the new piece and it fit really great, so we tacked it in and then I spot welded it to the floor. Now the old piece of frame had this little support bracket thing here, so we cut that out and then welded it into the new piece and it looks really good. And then to wrap this whole frame piece up, I drilled some holes in the floor here to spot weld it in. And now that the new frame for the cab is in, we could put these cab mounts in that we got new ones for, but where they go, there's a little bit of rot in the floor, so I'm going to make a new piece for that. So I got a new piece made and fitted in, and then I tacked it in. Then we got the cab support fitted and welded it in. And we tacked in the front one too. Next up, I'm going to fix up this shifter column because it's got some rust down here and it's really dirty. Alright, so I was cleaning all this sound dampening stuff off of here. Make sure that it's all solid under there and stuff. And there's literally bugs under that. That's disgusting. This is so gross. It's like their little tunnel things. Alright, all that stuff is off. This glue stuff I'll just probably sandblast off later or something. Now I'm going to try and patch this gap here. Alright, it's all cleaned up. I patched that gap and I sprayed some primer on it just to wrap the whole thing up, and it looks pretty good. Next up, we made this patch for the visor here because you can see this old piece was completely rotted out and this looks really good. However, when we went to go weld it in, we realized there was a lot more rot, so we had to make this piece also. Next up, we welded in this new cab corner because it was pretty bad, and we also made this piece back here because it was pretty rotted too. And then finally, we fully welded in the rocker. And now that the new rocker is in, I went down to the shed to grab the door so that we could fit them and make sure they still open and close. Which thankfully they do, because that would be really bad. So the next thing that I did was I took this red spinning light off from the top, and I wish I didn't because, yeah, that's a lot of rust under there. So I cut it out, and then I sprayed some primer in there to prevent it from rusting anymore, and then I made a new piece and welded it in. Now next thing on the list are these door skins. Of course, both the inside and the outside of them are rotted out, so we gotta fix that. So luckily you can buy new door skins for the inside and the outside, so we traced up where they would go, and then we started cutting them out. And yeah, that's what's inside this door. So glad we did that. So this is the rot that's on the outer side. It's pretty bad, so I'm glad we got a new piece. Now before we weld on the new skin didn't quite get high enough on the door here, so I got to cut this little rod out and then make an L shape to fix it. So now that that piece is in, we put the outer skin on and then we got the inner skin on also. And now all that's left to do is curl this flap over so it's not sticking out. And then with that, this door is pretty much done. All that's left to do is just finish welding up these seams. And now this piece is next on the list, and this was by far the hardest thing to make. But we made it up and we got it tacked in. And the last thing on this passenger side is this little strip here, but that was easy. Now with that, the passenger side is completely finished. Everything is welded in and it all looks amazing. Now we have to do the exact same thing to the other side, except one thing is different. And that one thing that is different is this dent right here. You would think you would just be able to push it out from the inside, but this thing right here is blocking it. So we cut a spot out so we could push it out, and then we just had to weld it all back together and make it look good. And now that that's done, we gotta do the exact same thing to the other side. Alright, the other side's done. We got this cab corner in, we got the rocker all welded in, all the floor pans are in and all welded, everything looks good, and we even got the door done. And now that everything is done, we sanded it and then we welded on little pegs to the cab stand so we could pick it up with the forks on the tractor and bring it outside. Because now that it's all sanded, there's dust everywhere, so we need to blow it off and then we can clean it and get it ready for paint. First, we gotta blow all the dust off. Alright, now that all the dust is blown off, we're going to wipe this thing down with some alcohol. It's definitely important to wipe everything down before you're going to paint it because it makes sure that all the dust you missed with the air will get clean. Okay, now that cab is all clean and ready for paint, we got to do the same thing to the hood and a couple other pieces. First, we just had to fix a little bit of rust right there, which was pretty easy to make, and then there's a little spot right there. But now, this entire thing has to be sanded and cleaned. Alright, it's all sanded, now we're just cleaning it up. Next up, we just set up this little rack here so that we could hang all the parts that are prepped and ready for paint. Then we brought the cab outside so the sun could heat it up because the paint will stick better. We got all of our stuff ready to paint now. We just need to mix part A of the primer with the part B. Paint's all good. We're testing it in a spot that you won't see to make sure it's spraying good, and it definitely is, so now we can move on to the cab. We got the tractor holding it up so that we can get the underside, and then when this is done, we'll set it down and paint the rest. Underside's all done. We got it on here thick, and it looks really good. After we did the underside, we got the rest of the cab in a nice solid coat, and it looks great. Painting it made it look so good and brought this whole thing together. Now we gotta paint the rest of the stuff. Now that all the pieces are painted, we brought them inside so that they can hang up and dry. And the last thing I had to do was apply seam sealer to all the seams to make sure no water gets in this thing. And now with that, this cab is finally done after 6 long months. This cab has come a long way. It's gone from a completely rusted out piece of junk to a completely rust-free cab that looks amazing. Thank you to everybody who watched this. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and make sure to stay tuned because there's a lot more work that has to be done for this thing before it can get on the road.